A miracle is an unusual event of a physical or material kind that supersedes the laws of nature and is due to a supernatural act of God. This definition raises three main problems. It has frequently been objected that miracles are impossible because they conflict with the laws of nature. Much depends on how we interpret the latter. Two interpretations are possible. According to the first, the laws merely state that the ways in which nature in fact behaves. According to the second, the laws state that in which nature must behave. Let us take the statement, if A occurs, B will occur. According to the first interpretation, this statement merely records a regular sequence of events. It is simply a fact of experience that A is always followed by B. According to the second interpretation, the statement affirms the natural necessity. A is so constituted that it must be followed by B. The same difference of interpretation correspondingly affects our understanding of the converse statement, if B occurs, A has occurred. I do not here propose to debate these two interpretations on their intrinsic merits. My sole aim is to consider their compatibility or incompatibility with the idea of the miraculous. The first is obviously compatible. If the relation between A and B is merely one of sequence, there is no good reason why the sequence should not be broken. Correspondingly, there is no good reason why the laws that state these sequences should not have exceptions. The only reason that can be given is the principle of natural uniformity. However, this principle is notoriously unprovable. If there is no necessary connection between A and B, we cannot prove either that B normally follows A, it must always follow it, or that because A normally precedes B, it must always precede. Even if we could be absolutely sure that in every instances A and B have been thus related in the past, we should have no grounds to affirming that they must be similarly related in the future. A prima facie case against the possibility of miracles is much stronger if we regard physical laws as signifying objective necessities in nature. Yet, the case is answerable. A physical law is formulated on the supposition that no supernatural factors operate. Hence, if they operate, the law is inapplicable during the time of their operation. Hence, two causal necessities covered by the law are annulled. However, the concept of creation entitles us to affirm that this form of supernatural intervention in nature is possible. If there are natural necessities, they, like everything else in the created realm, are God-given. Like everything else in nature, therefore, they have only a relative independence or derived autonomy. They act so long as God wills that they act. Just as the entities they characterize exist so long as God wills that they exist. Having created them, God can suspend them and replace them with new powers. Whether He has done so is another question. The question is a double one and embraces the second and third problems. Next, can we ever be sure that an event is scientifically inexplicable and so is entitled to be called a miracle? It is well known that some events that at one time seem to be inexplicable are at a later time found to be explicable in terms of further scientific investigation. Thus, to a medieval man, all kinds of technological achievements that we take for granted would have been seemed impossible. Is it not that rash to say that any abnormal event that can never be explained in terms of natural powers and so brought within the scope of natural law, either through the modification of an old law or through the introduction of a new one? Ought we not always to retain an open mind concerning every unusual event, however astonishing it may be? It is certainly tempting to give affirmative answers to these questions, and so to exclude miracles from consideration. Yet, if we did so, we should be carrying agnosticism too far. It is possible to specify some occurrences that fall outside the scopes of existing laws and correlative experience to such an extent that our whole understanding of the world would be undermined if we could be attributed to natural powers. Such an occurrence would be the resurrection of Christ, as this is recorded in the New Testament. Can we entertain the idea that dead bodies have undiscovered properties that enable them to leave their tombs and reappear in transfigured modes to the living? We cannot do so without calling in question everything that has been scientifically established concerning the human organism. And finally, what are the criteria for establishing that a miracle has occurred? The main ones I suggest are these. First, we have no right to believe in a miracle unless the evidence of it survives the most rigorous scrutiny. We have no right to do so for two reasons. Firstly, our whole lives are governed by the presuppositions of natural uniformity. We could not live with any confidence unless we assume in countless cases that B will follow A in the future, as it has done in the past. Secondly, our whole trust in God implies that the belief that His governance of nature is reliable. The religious person is bound to assume that if God suspends the laws of nature, He does so only on rare occasions for a special purpose. And secondly, no one has a right to believe that an event has been miraculously caused unless it is parallel with God's nature and will. There are also two subordinate criteria. The case for a supposed miracle is strengthened in proportion to the trustworthiness of the eyewitnesses and to the impact of the miracle on their lives. Admittedly, in the light of these criteria, the case for any miracles is very weak. Yet, if we grant the miracles are possible, there is no a priori reason for affirming that a convincing case is never available. Admittedly, to these criteria cannot be used to prove that a miracle has occurred, even when they are fully satisfied the attribution of an event to the supernatural activity of God. And so it is the designation as a miracle required a distinctive act of spiritual intuition. However, such an act is always required for the apprehension of the God's existence and activity.